Namaste students. In the previous module, I taught you the steps involved in the Holozoic nutrition. Today I am going to teach you the structure of human alimentary canal. Just have a look at human digestive system. You already studied this in smaller classes and I am sure that you will be familiar with this. What is the mode of nutrition in human being? Yes, it is Holozoic nutrition. And I am sure that you will remember the steps involved in this process. Now let us look at the structure of the human digestive system. There is a process called as ingestion of food. So food is taken in through the mouth. And it is passed down, just a quick look at the system. It's passed down, it is taken in the buccal cavity. From buccal cavity, the food is directed down through a tubular structure called as esophagus. Esophagus leads to a bag-like structure called as stomach. From the stomach, the food is directed towards the small intestine. And from the small intestine, it's taken to the large intestine. And finally, the undigested waste product is expelled out, a process called as egestion. This is just to tell you, brief you the structure. So what is human digestive system made up of? Human digestive system is made up of a tubular structure called as alimentary canal and the associated glands. Alimentary canal and the associated glands. Associated glands means the glands associated with the structure. Okay. So what is the kind of digestive system? The digestive system is made up of, is called as a complete digestive system. A complete digestive system normally has got two openings. One is for the intake of food called as ingestion. And the other opening is for egestion process. Some lower animals have an incomplete digestive system where there is only one opening for ingestion as well as egestion. So it's a hollow tubular structure, alimentary canal, with two openings, one for ingestion and other for egestion. This kind of digestive system or alimentary canal, we call it as a complete digestive system or alimentary canal. Now let us have a quick look at each part of the digestive system. So the food which we eat or ingest goes to the buccal cavity. Buccal cavity is nothing other than the cavity inside your mouth. So inside your mouth, you know what you have. Yes, you have tongue and you have different types of teeth. So what are the different types of teeth which we find in a human being? Okay, we can call it as, it's heterogeneous, different kinds of teeth. Incisors, canine, premolar and molars. These are the different kinds of teeth. Okay, and then children, when you were small, you would have experienced, you had a bad experience of toothache and all, which means some of your tooth would have fallen down. What is the kind of teeth which will normally fall and later it will get replaced? So we can say in the lifetime of a human being, there are two types of teeth. When you were small, when you were young, you have a set of teeth called as milk teeth. And milk teeth is 20 in number. So some of these milk teeth fall off. It is actually deciduous, you can say. The deciduous means something which falls off, it sheds. So similarly, the milk teeth or deciduous teeth sheds off, it falls. And later it is replaced by permanent tooth, okay, permanent teeth. Which is 32 in number. So now you may not have 32, but as you grow up, you can see 16 in the upper jaw and 16 in the lower jaw. So this kind of dentition we normally call as diffeodont. You need not study these terms because in your higher class you will be studying it. Diffeodont means in the lifetime of an individual, that's found in mammals, mostly human being has it. When you were a child, you had a set of teeth called as milk teeth, which is 20 in number, 10 in the upper jaw, 10 in the lower jaw. Later some of these teeth fall off and it's replaced and finally you will have a complete set of 32 teeth. This is called as permanent tooth. Now, what else is found in the buccal cavity apart from teeth? You have tongue. Tongue actually, seems to be, if you are not very clear about the structure of the tongue, there is no much to study for you in 10th standard. You can just understand it is having some taste buds. Okay, you are able to taste the different kind of food like sour, bitter, whatever it is. So function we'll study later, but just understand this is a structure which has got a major role in the process of digestion. Now let us move on to what are the other structures found in the buccal cavity. See, when you eat something or when you think of some tasty food or you get the smell of a tasty food, normally you get an experience like your mouth waters. What is that exactly makes you water is the smell, okay, the sense of the food. But what is it water which is produced? It is actually called as saliva, and what produces it? In our mouth we have 3 pairs of salivary glands, okay, 3 pairs of salivary glands. Parotid gland is the largest salivary gland and is found in the cheeks, one on either side. And you have a submaxillary gland which is found in the lower jaw. Submaxillary is also called as submandibular. So one in one side of the jaw, lower jaw, one on the other side. And sublingual is found below the tongue. So understand the location. So these 3 glands can sense the smell of the food or taste of the food and make you salivate, okay. So saliva is a secretion which is actually secreted or made by these 3 pairs of glands, parotid gland, submaxillary and sublingual. You would have heard about mumps. It's a viral infection. And normally the cheeks, this part swells out. This is actually an infection of the parotid gland. Virus infects your parotid gland, okay. Now next, so this is the diagram. Whatever I explained, you can see the diagram. Parotid gland location you see in the cheeks. Submandibular is in the lower jaw, and it's also called as submaxillary, and sublingual is below your tongue. So children, just tell me what are the different salivary glands and how many do you have? Yes, we have 3 pairs of salivary glands. Parotid, yes, submaxillary and sublingual. Now, throughout the alimentary canal, right from the esophagus till the large intestine, if we just take a cross section, it looks like this. I'm showing you this diagram. You need not study this. This shows the arrangement of various cells or layers. For now, for your 10th standard, you just need to know about the muscularis, muscular layer. All these zeros are, it is of course protective in nature. Mucosa and submucosa and all, it secretes some mucous substance. This is the lumen, which is the cavity. But let us be more bothered, or you need to know about muscularis layer, because when we are eating something, the food is passed down through the esophagus and it's directed towards the small intestine and then to the large intestine. So here comes the importance of muscular movement, and it is smooth muscles. So we have smooth muscles throughout our alimentary canal, okay. So the muscles are contracting and pushing the food down, okay. So just understand, throughout the alimentary canal, right from the esophagus till the large intestine, you have this muscularis or smooth muscles. Now, the food is passed down through the esophagus and it comes to the stomach. So I told you the structure of esophagus. It's actually made up of muscles, okay, smooth muscles and all those connective tissue layers which I showed. Now comes the stomach. So stomach is a bag-like structure. There's a part of esophagus which is connecting to the stomach. The food which is directed down cannot be just like that pushed into the stomach, okay. So here comes a sphincter muscle. A sphincter is something like a valve which periodically opens and closes and allows the food to move down. Okay? So this can be called as a cardiac sphincter, because this region of the stomach, this again you need not study in 10th standard, I am just telling it, that's all. Okay? We can call it as gastroesophageal sphincter. Sphincter is a small flat muscular structure which periodically opens and allows the food to come down, because the stomach can't be loaded with so much of food. Understood? So food which is coming down, the sphincter opens and it directs the food to the stomach. So what is actually stomach made up of, we'll see. Before that, the digested food, partially digested food, has to come to the other part, which is the intestine. So here again we have a sphincter here, which we call as pyloric sphincter. This region is called as pyloric region of the stomach. So this is the pyloric region of the stomach. This is the actual body of the stomach. Body of the stomach. This part we call as fundus, okay. These are all extra information for you. The part of the stomach you need not study. You just understand here there is a sphincter. and here also there's a sphincter, okay, which is regulating the movement of the food. So I hope children you understood. Esophagus leads to stomach. Stomach is a J-shaped bag-like structure which stores food temporarily, and then after the digestive process it's passing down the food to intestine. Now what is found inside the stomach? The stomach is not just like a structure like that. On the inner wall of the stomach there are some special secretory cells, epithelial cells, which are modified. They secrete some enzymes, some mucus, etc. Let us see what are those cells. So collectively the cells found inside the stomach we call as gastric glands. Okay. So what is gastric gland, or what are gastric glands made up of? Yes, gastric glands are made up of mucus secreting cells. Second is pepsin secreting cell. Pepsin is the enzyme which is found secreted inside the stomach. And we have hydrochloric acid secreting cells. You may be thinking why this mucus and hydrochloric acid and all in the process of digestion, that we'll study later. Now just the structure. I'll ask you what are gastric glands, or what are the special secretory cells found in the stomach. So you should tell me gastric glands, then mucus secreting cells and pepsin secreting cells. That's it, okay? Gastric glands are mucus secreting cells, pepsin secreting cells and hydrochloric acid secreting cells. Now from the stomach, or stomach leads to small intestine. Small intestine, you know, it is the longest part of the alimentary canal. It's highly coiled and it's exactly fitting in a viscera. Okay, viscera means the interior. You can see how coiled it is. Now, what are the different parts of the small intestine? Small intestine is made up of three parts. Duodenum, which is actually continuing immediately after the stomach, a C-shaped structure, duodenum, followed by highly coiled region called as jejunum and ileum. So these are the three parts of the small intestine. Duodenum, anteriormost duodenum, just after the stomach, a C-shaped structure, origin of the alimentary canal, is called as duodenum, followed by highly coiled jejunum and ileum. Now, what is the importance of small intestine? You know, it is helping in digestion. Just, even though I'll be repeating it, I've just brought this here. This is very important because, very significant part, because here the digestive process is completing. Okay. So once more, what are the different parts of small intestine? Yes, children? Yeah, duodenum, jejunum and ileum. These spellings you have to write and learn. It's a little complicated, okay? Now let us have a look at a comparison, you know, the small intestine of a carnivore and a herbivore. Is it the same for all animals? I told it's very long structure. Is it of same length for every organisms? So I just brought a picture here to show you the difference, the comparison. Okay, you can have a comparative study. Here you can find a carnivore, the alimentary canal, the small intestine of a carnivore, and the small intestine of a herbivore. You can see that the herbivore has got a coiled, it's very coiled. It starts from here, it is very coiled, the small intestine. While a carnivore also has got a long coiled intestine, but it's not as long and as coiled as a herbivore small intestine. The function of this, I'll tell you in the next class, what is actually the purpose of this coiled intestine, okay? But now you should just know that which organism or which kind of organism, a herbivore or a carnivore, has got a longest small intestine. Of course, it's a herbivore, not a carnivore. Now, these are the duct systems of liver, gallbladder and pancreas. This is the origin of the small intestine, which is called as duodenum. Okay, this region is the duodenum. This duodenum has got a great significance because the very important glands which are helping in digestion is opening to this region. We already discussed salivary gland. Okay, I told you about the gastric glands, and now I am going to talk about liver, which is the largest gland in your body. Understand? This is the largest gland in your body. Okay, largest gland in your body. So here comes the liver. I didn't draw the liver purposely here. It's a structure like this, okay? Liver, okay? And the duct which leads to the intestine. You can see it's green in color here. We call it as a duct from liver. The liver, whatever secretion it makes, it has to be taken to wherever it has to carry out its function. That secretion is taken by a duct from liver. And then the secretion will not directly come to the intestine. Rather, it's stored in another structure called as gallbladder. Okay? So that is gallbladder. This structure is the gallbladder. So what is gallbladder? Gallbladder is a structure associated with liver. The secretion of the liver is stored in the gallbladder. And these two together comes as a common bile duct. So duct from the liver is called as, it is of course hepatic duct or duct from liver. It joins to the duct from gallbladder. And these two ducts join together to form a common bile duct. Okay? And this common bile duct will not again directly go and join. It joins to another duct of another major gland called as pancreas. So the third gland which we are going to talk about is pancreas. So pancreas also has got a duct. The duct which is coming from the pancreas, a leaf-like structure, it joins to the duct which is coming from the liver. Okay, and then it's joining together. Imagine this is the liver part. Secretion of the liver, secretion of the pancreas, and this is called as hepatopancreatic duct. This is the hepatopancreatic duct. Okay, so this is just the duct system. So understand, liver has a duct, gallbladder has a duct, and pancreas also has a duct. All these ducts together join, and as a single duct they are joining to the duodenum. That is called as hepatopancreatic duct. Now, what is found in the intestine? Intestine has got a lot of glands. It is glandular in nature. The glands are secreting some hormones also are there, but here because it's digestion, let us think more about the secretions which help in digestion. Okay. Now, so it's basically secretory in nature. Here it's a histology or a section of the intestine. It's opened up here, and we are showing here exactly what is there inside the small intestine. The small intestine has got a larger surface area, or the food has to be retained in the small intestine for getting exposed to the enzymes for digestion. And also it should have a larger surface area for absorption. So what is providing, imagine if there's a tubular structure and everything which is digested is just going off like that. So there's no purpose of that. So there are some foldings, okay. So this foldings, if I just imagine this is the intestine, the wall of the intestine, it's just irregular finger-like folding structures like that. This is, you can see here exactly the histology is like that. From the intestine there are several finger-like projections, okay, and towards the lumen, and that is called as villi. It's called as intestinal villi. Why is this villi so important? Each villi has got a network of capillaries. Here you can find a network of capillaries, okay. These are the capillaries. Capillary network. Capillaries are helping in the absorption, okay, secretion, exchange, etc. So a network of capillary, and there is a single lymphatic vessel. This yellow color is the lymphatic vessel. A lymphatic vessel, it is called as lacteal. Just understand, at least you remember as lymphatic vessel. So a single lymphatic vessel also is there, and it is richly supplied with blood capillary. So what is the use of this capillary network and the lymphatic vessel? So all the digested product as it comes through the lumen of the alimentary canal, this is the lumen, okay. When it is flowing through the lumen of the alimentary canal, it's coming down, it's being absorbed into the villi. It gets exposed, it comes in close proximity with the intestinal villi, and it's just absorbed into the bloodstream. For example, amino acids or whatever products are important, glucose, amino acids, water, etc. gets absorbed into the villi. And what is the importance of lacteal? Lacteal is a structure which helps in absorption of digested product of fat. Okay. So understand what is villi. Villi are finger-like process of projections in the small intestine which helps to increase the surface area of absorption. Now let us move on to the next part of the human alimentary canal, which is called as large intestine. Large intestine is also longer but not as long as small intestine. Large intestine is made up of cecum, colon and rectum. The three parts are cecum, colon and rectum. So small intestine leads to cecum part. What is the importance of cecum? Cecum hosts several symbiotic microorganisms in it. You normally say that we have some good bacteria. So if you take a lot of antibiotics, it might kill the good bacteria, we say. So what are these good bacteria? These good bacteria are actually helping us for a digestive process. So many functions are there. But you understand, in our cecum, there are some bacteria which is useful for us. So cecum harbors some useful bacteria, symbiotic microorganisms. And then the next part of the large intestine is colon. Colon, this is colon. Okay, colon has got a portion which is going up like this called as ascending colon. Ascending means going up. This is the transverse colon. Then comes the descending colon. Then comes a small S-shaped part. This part, okay, is called as the sigmoid colon. This is called as a sigmoid colon. So colon can be divided into ascending colon, transverse colon, descending colon, and sigmoid colon. So we are done with cecum. We are done with colon. Next comes the rectum part of the large intestine. What is the function of rectum? Oh, function we can see later, but anyway. So the next part is rectum. This is the rectum part. So I hope I just made it clear to you the different parts of the large intestine. And finally, it opens out through an anus. Okay. So these are the different parts of the alimentary canal. So once more, we'll just go for a quick recap. So the human digestive system is made up of alimentary canal and associated glands. Alimentary canal, I told you what are the different parts, okay? And what are the associated glands? Can anybody tell me what are the glands? Let us start from the mouth onwards. So in the mouth we have 3 pairs of salivary glands. Okay, fine. And then what next? Coming to the stomach. Stomach has got gastric glands. Is there any glandular structure in esophagus? Okay, no. Esophagus is not having any glands. And then after gastric glands, what are the other glands? Okay, liver is the largest gland. Function we'll see later, okay. Then pancreas. Then after pancreas, yes, wall of the intestine has got some intestinal glands. So these are the glands which are associated with the human digestive system. So understand it's a tubular structure called as alimentary canal, and there are some glands which are helping in digestion. Now, it is the question time for your paper. Just have a look at this diagram. I explained to you all the different parts. Just have a look at that. I'll give you 2 minutes time. You have to quickly label all the parts of this diagram. Okay, done. Let us see the answer. Yes, A is mouth. B is esophagus. Now you'll be able to identify it because I explained to you the structure, okay? And C is liver. D is stomach. E is pancreas. F is large intestine. G is small intestine. And vermiform appendix. What is vermiform appendix? Though it is not really concerned a part of the digestive system, I have to explain this because this is called as a vestigial organ, okay? It's called as a vestigial organ. A vestigial organ is an organ which is not actually having any particular function in us as of now, but it had a major function in our ancestor. When we say our ancestor, it's not our parents or great-grandparents, I'm telling, in the course of evolution, okay? Some Australopithecus or something, some organism from which we descended had this vestigial organ called as vermiform appendix, which is fully functional. But now, as of now, we don't have any function, but still it is found there. So it's found at the junction between the small intestine and large intestine. So understand what is vermiform appendix. Okay, fine. Next comes rectum. So children, hope you understood the structure of alimentary canal. In the next class, I'll be teaching you the function of the alimentary canal. Let me see.